The moment the rusted muffler of my 2012 Toyota Camry scraped against the pristine asphalt of the driveway, I knew I had made a significant choice. It was either the most brilliant decision of my life or the most catastrophic mistake. The iron gates of Sterling Manor towered above me, gilded with gold accents that seemed to scream their value to the world, declaring that regular iron was simply not pretentious enough for the people who lived here. As I drove up that long, intimidating path in Greenwich, Connecticut, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. I saw a woman wearing a simple navy dress from a discount rack, modest flat shoes, and small drugstore earrings. My hair was pulled back in a low, severe ponytail. I looked exactly like someone who did not belong in this world of old money and high expectations. I looked exactly like the person they expected me to be, a nobody. My name is Maya Bennett. I am 32 years old and I have a confession to make. For the past 14 months, I have been keeping a substantial secret from the man I intended to marry. This was not a small secret, like eating the last slice of pizza, nor a medium secret. My secret was that I earned $37,000 a month, and before taxes, the number is even more obscene. I am a senior software architect and the chief technology officer at one of the largest technology companies in New York City. I hold 3 patents and possess stock options that would make an investment banker weep, but Liam Sterling thought I was an administrative assistant who could barely afford her rent. Liam met me at the heavy mahogany door. He greeted me with a kiss that felt slightly performative, as if he were acting for an unseen audience. His blue eyes flickered down to my scuffed shoes and my lack of jewelry. In that split second, I saw an expression I had never noticed before: embarrassment. He was ashamed of how I looked. I filed that observation away in my mind immediately. "Ready?" he asked, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. We walked inside. The house was a monument to wealth, filled with crystal chandeliers and oil paintings that lined the walls. And there, standing in the foyer like a queen surveying her subjects, was Victoria Sterling. Victoria was a woman in her early 60s with a face that had clearly benefited from the work of excellent surgeons. Her hair was a perfect, immobile helmet of blonde. She extended her hand to me as if she were granting an audience to a peasant. Her handshake was limp, dismissive, and completely devoid of warmth. "Maya," she said, her voice smooth but cold. She looked me up and down, her eyes lingering on my dress. "You are so brave." "Brave?" I asked, keeping my voice small. "To wear something so rustic," Victoria continued, a smile twisting her lips that looked like she had just bitten into a sour lemon. "It is very courageous to care so little about appearances. Most young women in Greenwich would be terrified to be seen in such sensible shoes." She leaned toward her son, my fiancé Liam, and whispered something she thought I could not hear, but I heard every word. She said I looked like the hired help who had wandered in through the wrong entrance. I smiled and pretended I was deaf to her insults. That was when I knew this dinner was going to be very, very interesting. We moved into the dining room. The table was long enough to host a royal banquet, and the place settings included more forks than I had ever seen outside of a restaurant supply catalog. I counted 6 forks at each setting. Victoria noticed my hesitation. "I suppose you are not accustomed to formal dining," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "My grandmother always taught me that it is not the forks that matter, but the company you share the meal with," I replied politely. Victoria's smile tightened. Sitting across from me was Liam's sister, Serena Sterling. She was 38 years old and dripped with diamonds as if she had fallen into a jewelry store. She snorted into her wine glass at my comment. The interrogation began with the soup course. "So where exactly did you grow up, Maya?" Victoria asked. "A small town in Ohio," I said. This was true. "And your parents?" "They passed away when I was 7. My grandmother raised me," I answered. Victoria made a sound that was supposed to be sympathetic, but sounded more like a drain unclogging. "How difficult, growing up without proper guidance?" "My grandmother provided all the guidance I ever needed," I said firmly. Serena leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "And what did she do? Was she a laborer?" "She was a businesswoman," I said. "Small ventures." I did not tell them that my grandmother, Eleanor Bennett, had built a business empire and sold it for millions of dollars. I did not tell them that she had left me everything, along with a letter teaching me that a person's true character only shows when they think you have nothing to offer them. Victoria moved on, relentless. "And you work in technology, as a secretary?" I work in a support role, I said. It was technically true. As a chief technology officer, I supported the entire infrastructure. How nice. Every team needs support staff, Victoria said, nodding as if my mediocrity was confirmed. Then Serena decided to drop the bomb. Speaking of support, I ran into Sophia Kensington last week. She is doing wonderfully. The name landed on the table like a grenade. I watched Liam carefully. A flicker of guilt crossed his face, quickly hidden. Sophia Kensington was the daughter of a wealthy luxury car importer, a perfect match for the Sterling family business. She was also Liam's ex-girlfriend. Sophia was always such a lovely girl, Victoria added enthusiastically. So accomplished, so well-suited to our lifestyle. It is such a shame you two parted ways, Liam. Everyone expected a wedding. She is still single, Serena said, twisting the knife. It is almost like she is waiting for someone. I looked at the wall behind me. There was a gallery of family photographs. In at least 4 of them, a beautiful dark-haired woman stood next to Liam, her arm linked through his, looking radiant. It was Sophia. She sounds like a remarkable woman, I said, forcing a smile. Oh, she is, Victoria said. Then she looked at me with pity. I just hope you do not feel too out of place in our world, Maya. I understand that not everyone is born into certain advantages. There is no shame in being common. Common. She had called me common. I waited for Liam to speak. I waited for him to defend me, to tell his mother that I was intelligent and kind, and that he loved me. Mom didn't mean anything by that, Liam mumbled finally, looking at his plate. She is just being protective. Of course, Victoria patted his hand. A mother always wants the best for her son. The unspoken conclusion hung in the air. And you are not the best. I sat there, gripping the stem of my wineglass, feeling a cold realization settle in my chest. I had come here to test the Sterling family, and they were failing. But more importantly, Liam was failing. He sat at his mother's table and let her tear me apart without a word of real protest. The evening was far from over, but I already knew one thing. The man I loved was a stranger. After the excruciating dinner, Victoria announced that we would have coffee in the sitting room. The men, Arthur Sterling and Liam, drifted toward the large bay windows to discuss business in hushed tones, while Serena excused herself to make a phone call, clutching her purse a little too tightly. This left me alone with Victoria Sterling. She sat on a velvet armchair, sipping her espresso with the elegance of a viper waiting to strike. Then she set her cup down and looked at me with a sudden, feigned realization. Oh, Maya, since you work in support, perhaps you could assist me with something, Victoria said, her voice dripping with condensation. She reached into her designer tote bag and pulled out a sleek, expensive tablet. My iPad has been acting terribly sluggish all day. I suppose it is overloaded. You know how to fix these things, do you not? It is your job, after all. She held the device out to me, treating the chief technology officer of a billion-dollar company like her personal Geek Squad technician. I would be happy to take a look, Victoria, I said, keeping my expression neutral. I took the device. The screen was locked, but Victoria casually typed in the passcode, 1234, right in front of me, clearly not considering me a security threat. She assumed I was too simple to understand whatever data she held precious. I tapped the screen, navigating through her open applications. It was indeed slow, likely due to dozens of background apps running simultaneously, but as I went to close a mail application, a banner notification slid down from the top of the screen. It was an email from the family's private attorney. The subject line made my blood run cold. RE, Kensington merger. Timeline for placeholder exit. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands remained steady. Placeholder. I tapped the notification. I knew I shouldn't. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but the survival instinct that had helped me climb to the top of the tech world kicked in. I read the preview of the email. Victoria, regarding the merger with the Kensington family. Liam needs to maintain the relationship with Sophia. The current girlfriend, the placeholder, can be removed from the equation post-signing. The room seemed to tilt. They were not just rude snobs. They were predators. Is it broken? Victoria asked, watching me closely. I looked up, forcing a smile that felt like it was carved out of ice. Just a minor glitch, Victoria. A server synchronization error. I need to reset the network settings. It will just take a second. Fine. She waved her hand dismissively. Just fix it. I turned my body slightly away from her, shielding the screen. My fingers flew across the glass. I did not just clear the cache. In 30 seconds, I executed a script I had written myself for corporate security testing. I installed a background daemon, a piece of spyware that would log keystrokes, record audio, and mirror notifications directly to my encrypted server. I had just turned Victoria Sterling's personal device into a listening post. "There," I said, handing the tablet back. "It should run much faster now." "Thank you," she said, taking it without looking at me. "At least you're useful for something." 30 minutes later, I was back in the sanctuary of my small, rented apartment, the undercover home I used to maintain my disguise. I locked the door, stripped off the cheap navy dress, and sat down at my desk. I opened my high-performance laptop and authenticated the connection. The data from Sterling Manor began to flow in. I put on my noise-canceling headphones and accessed the audio feed from Victoria's iPad. The device was evidently sitting on a table in the library, and the microphone picked up voices with crystal clarity. I heard Victoria's voice first. "She is gone. Finally. God, looking at those shoes gave me a migraine." Then Serena's voice joined in. "I cannot believe Liam actually brought her here. I thought this was just a phase, like his vegetarian period in college." "This is serious, Serena," Victoria snapped. "We need the merger with the Kensington family to go through. The dealership is hemorrhaging money. We need Sophia's family capital to survive the next fiscal year." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the audio waveform dancing on my screen. The rumors were true. The great Sterling automotive empire was crumbling. They were broke. "Does Liam understand the timeline?" Serena asked. "He knows," Victoria replied. "He assured me he is keeping his options open with Sophia. He is just using this Maya girl to keep up appearances until the deal is signed. She is a placeholder, nothing more." A placeholder. The word echoed in my mind. I wasn't a person to them. I was a prop, a distraction to keep Liam occupied while they sold him off to the highest bidder. "And if she refuses to leave quietly?" Serena asked. Victoria laughed, a dry, cruel sound. "Then we will invent a scandal. We will discover some terrible secret about her. She is a nobody, Serena. Who would believe her over us?" I took off my headphones. The silence in my apartment was heavy, but it was no longer the silence of confusion. It was the silence of clarity. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights of New York. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from Liam. "Liam, sleep well, beautiful. Sorry about my mom tonight. She loves you. She just has a weird way of showing it. Love you." I looked at the message. Then I looked at the audio file on my screen where his mother confirmed he was conspiring to dump me. Liam Sterling was not a victim of his family. He was an active participant. He was a liar, and he had made the fatal mistake of underestimating the woman he was trying to play. They wanted a scandal? They wanted to discover a secret? I sat back down at my computer and cracked my knuckles. "Okay, Victoria," I whispered to the empty room. "Let's see what secrets you are hiding." I began to type. The next morning, I did not go to my administrative assistant job. Instead, I called in sick, a luxury the poor Maya could ill afford, but one that the real Maya Bennett needed desperately. I drove my Toyota to a parking garage in Midtown Manhattan, left it there, and took a taxi to a glass skyscraper on Fifth Avenue. I walked into the private offices of Thomas Thorne. In the original script of my life, Thomas Thorne, known to the Sterlings as an old family friend, was just a guest at the dinner. But my research had revealed a much deeper connection. 15 years ago, Arthur Sterling had cheated Thorne out of a partnership deal that had nearly bankrupted him. Thorne had rebuilt his fortune, but he had never forgotten the insult. I did not wear my disguise. I wore a tailored Saint Laurent suit and my grandmother's diamond watch. When I walked into his office, Thorne looked up from his desk, confusion knitting his silver eyebrows. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice gruff. "My secretary said it was urgent, Miss Bennett." "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Thorne," I said, placing a heavy leather folder on his desk. "I believe we have a mutual interest, specifically the destruction of the Sterling Automotive Group." Thorne leaned back, his eyes narrowing. "You look familiar, but you also look like trouble." "I am Maya Bennett. My grandmother was Eleanor Bennett." Recognition flashed in his eyes. "Eleanor, the Iron Lady of Ohio. I knew her. She was a brilliant woman." "She taught me to spot a bad investment," I said. "And right now, I am engaged to the worst investment in New York, Liam Sterling." Thorne laughed, a sharp, barking sound. You are the girl? The charity case fiancé Arthur was joking about at the club? That is the role I am playing, I admitted. But this is the reality. I opened the folder. Inside were the printouts of the financial records I had decrypted from the Sterling network the night before. I pointed to a series of highlighted transactions. The Sterling dealerships are technically insolvent, I explained, slipping into my professional persona. They have lost their credit line, but here is the smoking gun. Serena Sterling. Thorne put on his glasses. What is this? Embezzlement, I said calmly. Serena has been siphoning money from the company accounts for 5 years to fund her jewelry addiction and her husband's failed startups. She hides it under marketing expenses and consulting fees. The total is nearly $800,000. Thorne looked at the documents, his face hardening. This is illegal. This is prison time. It is leverage, I corrected him, and I know the manufacturer is looking for a reason to terminate their franchise agreement. If you were to present this evidence to the regional board— Thorne looked up at me, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. You want me to pull the trigger? I want you to be ready, I said. The engagement party is in 3 weeks. I want the franchise termination letter to be delivered that night. Why wait? Thorne asked, studying me. Why not just leave him? Because, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper, they plan to humiliate me. They plan to use me and throw me away like garbage. I intend to return the favor. Thorne nodded slowly. Your grandmother would be proud. The weeks leading up to the party were a masterclass in deception. I returned to my role as the grateful, naive fiancé, but the dynamic had changed. I was no longer walking into a trap. I was building one. Victoria Sterling, suspicious as ever, hired a private investigator. I knew this because my spyware on her iPad alerted me the moment she signed the contract. Find out who she really is, she had texted the investigator. She is too calm. I decided to give them exactly what they wanted to see. I spent an entire night creating a false digital footprint. I fabricated credit card statements showing maxed out limits. I created fake emails from a landlord threatening eviction. I even staged a phone call within earshot of the housekeeper, crying about money troubles. When the investigator reported back to Victoria, he told her exactly what I wanted her to hear. Maya Graham is drowning in debt, desperate and lucky to have found a rich man. Victoria's guard dropped. She stopped watching me closely. She thought she had won. But the final blow came 3 days before the party. Liam called me in the afternoon. Hey, babe, I have to work late tonight. Client dinner. Don't wait up. Okay, I said into the phone, my voice sweet. I love you. Love you too, he said, and hung up. I did not wait up. Instead, I opened my laptop. I had cloned Liam's phone 2 weeks ago. I could see his GPS location moving away from his office, moving away from any restaurant suitable for clients, and stopping at the Pierre Hotel on 5th Avenue. I drove there in my Toyota, parking down the street. I did not need to go inside. Through the window of the hotel restaurant, which faced the street, the view was perfect. Liam was there, and so was Sophia Kensington. They were seated at a corner table, bathed in the warm glow of candlelight. They were not discussing business. Liam was holding her hand across the white tablecloth. At one point, Sophia laughed, a genuine, throaty laugh, and reached out to stroke his cheek intimately. Liam looked at her with an expression he had never given me. It was not just lust, it was relief. He looked like a man who was finally with his equal, relaxing after a long day of pretending to love a peasant. I raised my camera, a professional DSLR with a telephoto lens that I kept in my trunk, and snapped the photos. Click, click, click. I captured the holding hands, I captured the kiss, I captured the moment they toasted with champagne, celebrating their secret, celebrating the merger, celebrating the fool named Maya, who was sitting at home waiting for a text. I lowered the camera. My hands were shaking, not with sorrow, but with a cold, white-hot rage. Working late, I whispered to the glass windshield. I drove home and added the photos to the file marked engagement party. The presentation was almost complete. The trap was set. All that was left was to spring it. The night before the engagement party, I gave Liam Sterling one final chance to be a decent human being. We were sitting in his luxury apartment, reviewing the final details for the event. The atmosphere was intimate, the kind of quiet domestic moment that usually precedes a wedding. But the air between us felt heavy, charged with the static of unspoken truths. "Liam," I said, setting down my tea, "how do you feel about us, about our future?" He looked up from his phone, flashing that practiced, charming smile. "I am excited, Maya. I cannot wait to marry you." I looked at him, really looked at him. I searched for the man I had fallen in love with 14 months ago in a coffee shop, but I could only see the reflection of his mother's ambition. "Is there anything you want to tell me?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Anything at all? About Sophia? About your family's business?" For a split second, his mask slipped. His face went pale, and I saw a flash of genuine fear in his blue eyes. He knew. Somewhere deep down, he knew he was guilty, but the sterling instinct for self-preservation took over. He reached across the table and took my hand. "There is nothing, Maya. You are everything I have ever wanted. Sophia is just an old friend. Nothing more." He looked me in the eye and lied with the ease of a sociopath. "I understand," I said softly. And I did. I understood that Liam Sterling would never choose me. He had chosen his role as the obedient son, the corporate pawn, the liar. He had sealed his own fate. The evening of the engagement party, Sterling Manor had been transformed into a palace. White tents dotted the manicured lawn, and crystal chandeliers hung from temporary beams, casting prismatic light across the gathering crowd. A string quartet played tasteful classical music near the fountain. It was not just a party, it was a coronation. Victoria Sterling was presenting her perfect family to the world, unaware that the foundation was rotten. I did not drive my Toyota Camry. I arrived 30 minutes late. A sleek black limousine pulled up to the valet stand. The attendant opened the door, expecting a senator or a CEO. He got both. I stepped out onto the gravel. The transformation was complete. I had shed the poor Maya persona like a dead skin. Tonight, I was Maya Bennett. I wore a custom emerald green gown designed by a man whose name is whispered with reverence during Paris Fashion Week, a dress that cost more than Victoria Sterling's entire wardrobe. It fit me like armor, silk wrapping around my body, announcing power with every rustle. Around my neck, I wore the Bennett Legacy pendant, a diamond solitaire that my grandmother had left me, appraised at a value higher than most luxury cars. On my wrist was a Patek Philippe limited edition watch, one of only 50 in the world. I walked toward the main tent. The walk felt like a runway. With every step, I buried the nervous girlfriend who cooked simple meals and apologized for her existence. I lifted my chin. The first person to notice me was Arthur Sterling, Harold. He was standing near the entrance, looking tired and bored. When he saw me, his polite smile froze. His eyes traveled from my face to the diamonds at my throat, and confusion washed over him. "Good evening, Arthur," I said, my voice projecting with the authority of a boardroom executive. "Thank you for hosting us." "Maya?" he stammered, blinking as if trying to solve a complex puzzle. I am glad you could make it." I swept past him before he could ask questions. The main tent was filled with hundreds of guests, business associates, politicians, and the elite of New York society. I recognized the regional manager from the automotive manufacturer. I saw the journalist from the Wall Street Journal. As I moved through the crowd, the reaction was immediate. Heads turned. Whispers started. People checked their phones, cross-referencing my face with Google searches. Is that? No, it cannot be. I finally reached the center of the room where Victoria Sterling was holding court. She was wearing a cream-colored gown that she clearly thought was the height of fashion, though it was off the rack. She was laughing at a joke, her head thrown back. She turned to greet the newcomer. Her expression went through a fascinating metamorphosis. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, fear. "Maya?" She said my name like a question. "Good evening, Victoria," I smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous smile. Her eyes darted over my dress, my jewelry, my posture. She could smell the money. She knew real wealth when she saw it, and she knew instantly that what I was wearing was not rented. Where did you get that dress?" she hissed, her voice trembling. "Oh, this?" I smoothed the silk. "It is just something I had in the back of my closet. I was saving it for a special occasion." Serena appeared at her mother's side. "Is it a rental?" she asked snidely, though her eyes were wide with envy. "It is a custom piece," I replied, naming the designer. "He is a personal friend. He does not design for the public." Serena's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I excused myself and walked toward the bar, leaving them paralyzed in my wake. I saw Liam emerging from the crowd. He looked pale. He had heard the whispers. He looked at me, at the woman he had called a placeholder, and for the first time, he looked small. "Maya?" he asked, his voice cracking. "What is going on? You look different." "I look like myself, Liam," I said. Before he could respond, a silver-haired man approached us. It was the CEO of a competing dealership chain. He ignored Liam and extended a hand to me. "Miss Bennett," he said respectfully. "I thought I recognized you. My nephew works at Cyberdyne. He speaks very highly of your leadership." "Thank you," I said graciously. "And are you related to Margaret Eleanor Bennett?" a woman from an investment firm asked, stepping closer. "She was my grandmother," I confirmed. The woman's eyebrows rose. A remarkable businesswoman, a legend. The circle around us tightened. The truth was spreading like a virus through the party. I could feel Liam tensing beside me. He was drowning in confusion. He had no idea who I was. He had never bothered to ask. Suddenly, the music stopped. Arthur Sterling's voice boomed over the speaker system. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, it is time for the speeches." I looked across the room. Thomas Thorne was standing near the stage, holding a thick manila envelope. He caught my eye and nodded. Victoria Sterling marched toward the microphone, regaining her composure. She was determined to stick to the script. She was going to announce the engagement, hint at the merger, and seal the deal. She had no idea that I had rewritten the ending. I finished my champagne and set the glass down. It was time. The stage was set at the far end of the main tent, decorated with white lilies and soft lighting that was meant to be romantic. To me, it looked like an altar for a sacrifice. Harold Sterling, Arthur, stood at the microphone, welcoming guests with the tired enthusiasm of a man who would rather be watching golf. He stumbled through his remarks, his eyes darting nervously toward his wife. Victoria Sterling took over smoothly. She climbed the steps with the determination of a general claiming territory. "Thank you all for coming," Victoria said, her voice amplified across the silent lawn. "We are here to celebrate love, family, and the future. My son Liam has found a wonderful young woman, Maya." She gestured for us to join her. Liam took my hand. His palm was sweating. We walked up the stairs together. The crowd watched us, hundreds of eyes reflecting the candlelight. "Maya is a simple girl," Victoria continued, her smile tight. "But she reminds us that humility is a virtue. And tonight, we are also celebrating the exciting new chapter for Sterling Automotive. We are looking forward to new partnerships that will ensure our legacy for generations." She was hinting at the merger with the Kensington family. She was selling a future that did not exist. "Maya," Victoria turned to me, handing me the microphone. "I am sure you want to say a few words to thank our guests." She expected me to stutter. She expected me to be the grateful, overwhelmed charity case. I took the microphone. It felt heavy and cold, like a weapon. "Thank you, Victoria," I said. My voice was calm, resonant, and completely devoid of fear. I looked out at the sea of faces. I saw Thomas Thorne standing next to the manufacturer's representative. Thorne gave me a subtle nod. "When I first came to Sterling Manor," I began, "Victoria taught me a very important lesson. She told me that appearances are everything, but my grandmother, Eleanor Bennett, taught me something different." A murmur rippled through the crowd at the mention of my grandmother's name. "She taught me that a person's true character is revealed only when they think no one important is watching. She taught me that the truth always leaves a digital footprint." I pulled my smartphone from my clutch. With a single tap, I authorized the command I had queued up hours ago. "I thought we should take a look at the real Sterling family album," I said. Behind us, the massive LED screen, intended for a montage of childhood photos, flickered. The romantic music cut out abruptly. Image 1. A spreadsheet appeared on the giant screen. It was not a photo. It was a balance sheet. Red ink covered the page. The words "insolvent" and "credit line revoked" were highlighted in yellow. Gasps erupted from the audience. "As you can see," I said, pointing to the screen like a professor giving a lecture, "the Sterling Automotive Group has been technically bankrupt for 6 months. They are desperate for a merger to cover their debts." "Turn it off!" Victoria shrieked, lunging for the tech crew, but the system was locked. I controlled it. Image 2. A video file played. It was grainy surveillance footage from the Sterling library. It showed Serena Sterling opening the company's safe and stuffing stacks of cash into her designer handbag. Beside it, a bank statement scrolled, showing hundreds of thousands of dollars transferred to offshore accounts. "That is a lie!" Serena screamed from the crowd, her face draining of color. Her husband looked at her with pure horror. "It is a documented fact," I replied, "and I believe the authorities have already received the full file." Liam grabbed my arm. "Maya, stop! What are you doing?" I shook him off and looked him in the eye. "I am doing what you could not, Liam. I am being honest." I tapped my phone one last time. Image 3. The screen changed to a high-definition photograph. It was taken through the window of the Pierre Hotel just 2 nights ago. Liam Sterling holding hands with Sophia Kensington. His face was clear. Her face was clear. The intimacy was undeniable. The silence in the tent was absolute. It was the silence of a bomb that had just detonated the moment before the shockwave hits. "I am not a placeholder, Liam," I said, my voice echoing in the stillness, "and I am not a fool." I saw the manufacturer's representative pull out his phone and walk away briskly. I knew exactly who he was calling. The franchise agreement was dead. The Sterling Empire was dead. I looked at Victoria. She was trembling, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Her social standing, her pride, her future, all evaporated in 3 slides. I reached up and removed the engagement ring from my finger. It was a cloudy diamond in a cheap setting, a perfect metaphor for our relationship. "You should keep this," I said, dropping the ring into Liam's chest pocket. "You will need the money." I turned to the crowd. "My name is Maya Bennett. I am the Chief Technology Officer of Cyberdyne, and I am breaking this engagement." I walked down the steps. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea. No one spoke. No one tried to stop me. Behind me, the chaos began. I heard Victoria sobbing. I heard Serena shouting at her husband. I heard the frantic clicking of cameras as the society photographers realized they had just captured the scandal of the decade. I walked out of the tent, past the fountains, and into the cool night air. I did not look back. Epilogue 1 week later. I sat in my corner office on the 45th floor of the Cyberdyne Tower in Manhattan. The morning sun streamed through the glass, illuminating the city below. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Headline: Sterling Automotive Group files for Chapter 11, bankruptcy amidst fraud investigation. The article detailed everything. The manufacturer had terminated the partnership. Serena Sterling was under investigation for embezzlement. The Kensington family had publicly distanced themselves from the Sterlings, killing the merger. There was no mention of me. Thomas Thorne had kept his promise. The destruction of the Sterling family was viewed as a result of their own greed and incompetence. My phone buzzed again. A text message. Sender: Liam, Maya, please, I can explain. I made a mistake. I still love you. Can we talk? I looked at the message. I thought about the man who had let his mother call me common. I thought about the man who had held another woman's hand while I waited for him. I did not feel anger anymore. I felt nothing. He was a glitch in my system, and I had patched the code. I pressed delete. Then I pressed block. I stood up and walked to the window. My grandmother's diamond pendant felt warm against my skin. She was right. Wealth is not measured by bank accounts or social standing. It is measured by character. It is measured by the courage to walk away when you are undervalued. The Sterlings had failed the test. I had passed. I took a sip of my coffee and turned back to my work. The city was waking up and I had an empire to build.